I'm currently in the middle of fixing a neglected 1994 F-250 with the idea being to turn it into a farm truck that'll last another 30 years. As of now, I've replaced the front brakes, front brake lines, the hydraulic pump, both wheel bearings, race bearings, PSOM, ignition coil, ICM, and the distributor, but it still has so many problems. Problems like randomly dying.
Oh, are you kidding me?
Shifting into neutral whenever it feels like it, not driving in a straight line, having a very squishy brake pedal, and a parking brake that doesn't work. Something that I have noticed is that it likes to blow black smoke on startup, which tells me something's wrong. So the first part I decided to throw at it was the fuel pressure regulator. When this goes out, the fuel pressure is no longer regulated and starts sending too much fuel to the injectors. All I had to do was remove the vacuum line, take off the old part,
There we go, buddy.
and put the new one on. Pretty quick fix.
Okay.
So the next part that called for replacing was the EGR valve.
Are you fucking me right now?
This was not as quick of a fix. After struggling trying to remove the old part,
Oh, my arm getting tired.
I removed the old gasket material, broke another vacuum line, and finally managed to install the new EGR. Fixing the old lines actually turned out to be pretty easy. I just got some 7/64 vacuum line, cut it to length, and shoved the old stuff inside of it.
Alrighty. That is fixed for the most part. There's the fuel filter, and it's got these, what Ford calls quick disconnect. I think is bullshit, because there ain't nothing quick about it.
Turns out you actually need some special tools in order to remove the quick disconnect lines Ford used.
I'm gonna use a Sharpie. This is definitely not overkill. Beautiful, bro. Okay, so far so good. Ain't no way, bro, it's about to be this easy. Dude, let's go.
The cap was the perfect size to slide in between the connector and the fuel filter to release the clips holding on the hose.
Oh, it's a lot of gas. That's a lot of gas. Holy shit. Okay.
And once I got the new filter in place, I found that the front fuel line did not want to go on, and it turned out the metal insert inside the hose had some bent tabs. I was originally going to bend them back in place, but then remembered I can literally buy any replacement part I want, so I bought a whole pack of them. I put the new metal insert in, slid the fuel line on, and went on a test drive. This drive was to check if the fuel pressure regulator, EGR valve, and fuel filter fixed it from dying randomly. And it did, although an old habit started to come back.
Oh!
If you remember from the last episode, I got the PSOM repaired, hoping it would fix the truck from slamming in and out of neutral. As it turns out, it did not fix it. So I did some last minute research and found out that the ABS speed sensor on the rear differential could cause this issue. So I replaced the old one with a new one. That did not fix the issue. So the transmission isn't working the way that it should be. I'm gonna ignore that and work on the rear brakes. Ever since I got this truck, the brakes have always been more of a suggestion, and I'm gonna fix that by doing what I do best. Spend more money on parts.
Holy shit!
Alright. Got my BFH. It literally needed one more swing. It was badass too, I wish I was recording. Aw, didn't even have to hit it, the hammer. Once I managed to remove both of the tires, I could get a good look at the drum brakes. What the fuck am I looking at? Yeah, I've never worked on drum brakes before, and I was really contemplating buying a rear disc brake conversion kit, but ultimately decided that it would probably be cheaper and easier to stick with the stock configuration. So after taking off the old parking brake lever and removing the wheel brake cylinder, people tell me I need to try penetrating fluid, but I think it's a scam. I know I just said penetrating oil is a scam, but hear me out. I replaced the old self-adjuster cable, installed some new wheel cylinder links, and started to tackle the task of putting it all back together. After failing multiple attempts, I don't think that's right. Fucking hell. I think it goes right there. I don't know. This is about to fucking piss me off, I already know. Finally got these things on. That was awful. All I had to do now was clip on the holding springs. About to finesse this dude on. There we go. Do some finishing touches, and that completed the install.
It's looking good.
With the rear brakes done, I can finally start working on the wheel hub and replacing all of the bearings and seals. Get this seal off, I got this jaw slide hammer. I just have to figure out how to put this together. I thought this contraption was going to be the best way to pull the seal out, But as usual, the fancy tools didn't get the job done.
Yeah, this is fucking going nowhere.
So I stuck with the tried and true method, as well as my personal favorite, of wailing on it with a hammer. Holy shit, that was a fucking battle. With the seals finally out, we can now remove the race bearings that are press fit inside of the hub. The next day, I cooked up my favorite breakfast meal, which consists of 1 Celsius and 2 race bearings for a Sterling 10.25 axle.
A couple hours before I go to work, hopefully I can install the race bearings, and the seal before then. Let's get into it.
Slammed the race bearings in, put the outer bearing in, installed the seal, and threw the hub back on the spindle. And, oh, there we go. Once I got the hub on, I put a new O-ring on the axle, put a nice bead of RTV on the axle flange, slammed the shit out of my thumb. Oh, fuck me. Cleaned up the bolts, and bolted the axle to the hub. Cool. Got some fantastic news. While undoing this brake line, this metal is actually so rusted to this nut that whenever I move the nut, the metal twists. Let me try to twist this. Oh, fuck. Now that I had a hole in the brake line, I have no choice but to replace them. And once I got done replacing the rear brake lines, I figured I might as well replace the front brake master cylinder, as well as those front brake lines. Procedure is, fill this up with some brake fluid, let it drip out, plug them up, and then push the cylinder in, no more than an inch, and slowly release it, and then do that for a couple of times. I don't know. Eventually, I figured out how to bleed the master cylinder and started installing it. It is the next day, and we are bone dry. We got a leak somewhere. Turns out we had many leaks everywhere. Got some alright news. Brake fluid reservoir isn't completely dry. There is a slight leak. There's some brake fluid coming out of that guy. But eventually, I figured it out by just really cranking on the brake line. So after topping off the master cylinder, I started bleeding the brakes and put the tires back on. Now that the brakes are figured out, for the most part, I decided I should probably replace the diff fluid on this thing. And after looking at the fill plug, that was definitely a good call. So I zipped the bolts out and gently took off the diff cover.
Oh, fuck me.
And once I got the diff cover off, I gave it a good cleaning, and by then it was dark outside, so I put some RTV on the cover, bolted it up, let it dry for a bit, then torqued it all down. It is now the next day, cold as shit. Fill her up, hopefully she won't leak. Oh, there we go. Once the diff was topped off, I had nothing else to fix that would distract me from the main issue of this truck. Oh well. A few issues I'm experiencing is the transmission shifting very rough, going in and out of neutral while driving, and shifting pretty much whenever it feels like it.
Okay, that was pretty smooth.
One of the things that could cause this issue is the shift solenoid pack located inside the transmission. And in hindsight, this was probably the last thing I needed to replace since the transmission has already been rebuilt, but I'm already this far and I have the new part, so I might as well stick it through. After cleaning the transmission pan, installing the new shift solenoid, placing the transmission filter, putting the pan back on, filling the transmission up, realizing I put too much transmission fluid in, then going on a test drive to find out that the very expensive part did not fix the problem.
Definitely did not fix it.
Made me think, I might be doing something wrong. So I put on my detective hat and did what I should have done when I first got the truck. Check the codes. Thing is, you can't just plug in an OBD2 reader to the truck since it's a 1994. So I have to perform Ford's self-test feature and count how many times the check engine light blinks. This test would work great if the check engine bulb wasn't burnt out.
Check engine light is not coming on.
So I took out the instrument cluster and replaced the bulb. After putting the cluster back in the dash, I put on the jumper wire to perform the self-test and was finally able to check the codes.
Oh my god, it works.
After doing the check, counting the numbers, flashes, all that stuff, we got a 558 and a 624. Stored codes 332, 624 again. These two relate to EGR, and this one is the EPC current is high. ding, ding, ding. This relates to the transmission. Considering I already replaced the solenoid pack, it's either a connector, a wire is bad, or the PCM is toast. So now I'm gonna be taking out the PCM, seeing if there's any blown capacitors, and if there are, that's more than likely my issue. So after removing the PCM, we can now see the guts, and I'd say this is definitely what's causing the truck to not want to shift properly. After spending a few $100 more on the new PCM and waiting a few days, ladies and gentlemen, we got him. I reinstalled the new computer, buttoned up the step, see if we can fix it. Pretty sure it did, but guess we'll find out. Come on. What the fuck? There we go. Yeah, just a little hesitant. That's all. Just a little hesitant. She freaking works. Shifted into overdrive. We're not slamming into first and second gear. And after so much time and money, I finally managed to sort out the transmission issue and can drive it somewhat safely now. I still need to check up on a few things like the sloppy steering, unwanted camber, and the interior needs a little sprucing up, but it's good enough to haul shit right now. So I'm gonna count that as mission accomplished.